The CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission? To help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEOs, is your business growing? Where is your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Welcome to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs every week that share their journey. This includes their thoughts and ideas that's helped their success. But I think the thing that comes out at the best for me is probably the things they shared that they would help our listeners not to do again. And it's been so good. Today, I'd like to welcome Gayle Guyardo, the morning host for WFLA Channel 8, or stepping down, I understand.
Yeah.
But for me, she is the CEO of Morning Tampa TV. I don't care what anybody says. I've been riding with Gayle forever.
Thank you, Dean.
I love YouTube TV because I can take you everywhere.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, it was quite a journey. 26 years at 8.
Yeah. Well, we our entrepreneurs really love the real journey. And they always like to know that journey that started back in October 19. And for my ladies, I never share it.
You can.
1967.
Yep, 53 years old.
That's awesome. So I know you were born in Tampa. Let's start there.
Okay, born in Tampa at Tampa General Hospital. Brought home to Davis Islands in the family home that I live in today. My background is that my dad's family, they're dairy farmers. They came here generations ago from Sicily, where they farmed goats, and they picked Brandon, Florida, to farm dairy cattle.
Wow.
And my grandfather, Paul, was quite the visionary. He bought about 700 acres in the heart of Brandon back in, I guess it would be, he worked with his family. I think he branched out on his own in the 50s.
Wow.
And he bought that land. He had 800 heads of cattle, and he grew what was the largest dairy farm in West Central Florida. And this was a man that had to teach himself how to read and write. He learned 3 different languages on his own. Italian, obviously his first language, Spanish, and English. And my grandmother, who stayed by his side till the day he died, worked alongside him, and they ran a very successful business. And then on my mom's side was my grandfather, Joe, who grew up very impoverished, and he went to Tulane Medical School and University of Florida and became a very prominent doctor. He, too, is Italian. So I feel like I come from this heritage of people that really were able to rise to the top through a lot of hard work and living the American dream.
Do you speak multiple languages?
It's funny that you would ask me that, and there's many folks that live in the Tampa Bay area that would agree with this. My family felt back in the day that if I did not learn to speak Italian or Spanish, that would be more beneficial for me in the future. So they would never answer us if we'd try to speak to them in Italian or Spanish. They really wanted us to immerse ourselves and become Americans. And they thought they were doing us a favor at the time. Now, if I could speak Spanish and be bilingual, I'd be making a lot more money, especially in TV news. You're sought after if you're bilingual or trilingual.
Wow, that's awesome. So your dad is a dairy cattle guy, but he didn't just do dairy cows.
No, he didn't do just dairy cattle.
Because he started a dairy.
Yes.
I mean, I met him years and years ago when I was a young man.
Yes.
Because he had, was it Sunny, Florida?
Yeah, so Sunny, Florida was part of the Guyardo family.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it was called Florida Dairy.
That's right.
And so my dad, Joe, and his father, Paul, and brother, my deceased uncle, Johnny, the 3 of them went off and they opened up American Dairy. So there's still a thriving, Guyardo farm, Sunny Dairy. But my family sold out in the 80s to Borden and T.G. Lee.
Yeah, I remember that. I did business with them. I had a tire company, and they...
Really?
Oh, yeah. They were right there at 40th Street or...
Yeah,
right there. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday meeting the whole family.
Right.
Because I was a young man trying to sell tires, and you guys had lots of trucks.
Right.
So it was a natural for me. I loved it.
That's awesome. I didn't know that connection just until now.
Yeah. So now you're growing up in South Tampa, and you go to all the schools here in the Tampa system, or?
I went to the Academy of the Holy Names to begin with, and then I went to Berkeley for middle school, and then I graduated from H.B. Plant High School.
Wow. So you've been in all the really cool schools.
Yes. I was not, I have 4 amazing daughters, and they're also academically supercharged. That was not the case for me growing up. I mean, I think now they more easily identify learning disabilities, and they didn't really do that so much back in the day. I kind of struggled through school a lot until I finally made my way to Plant High School and had a teacher that noticed something in me that was positive. Her name was Mrs. Beecham. And she wanted me to be a public speaker, and she thought that I had a gift for that. And so she identified that. And I think that that was like a real turning point for me, in that I realized that I could be good at something, and I could be rewarded to do something that I really loved. And so it really helped me kind of refocus and get through high school. And then eventually I went off to Auburn University.
So that was a big part of your journey.
It was a big part of my journey. What I failed to mention is the huge impact that my mom had on my life. She was very forward-thinking for a woman of her generation. She graduated from Northwestern University when, most women of that era didn't even go to college.
Right.
And she got into radio and TV at a very young age. She worked as a radio host in New Orleans, doing an exercise show. And then she came home to Tampa, where she worked for Channel 8 and Channel 13, where she had a Fashion for You show. And back in the day, where they were the big lavalier mics. And then eventually she opened up her own protocol school. And, as Murphy's Law would have it, she had a daughter that much preferred to be on the farm, and she was always trying to reel me in. It's like being the preacher's daughter. It's like I didn't want to necessarily do all the etiquette stuff, and I was painfully shy. And I think the combination between her always prodding me and helping me to kind of step out into the spotlight. I was an incredibly awkward little girl. I think that, and combined with finding a teacher that believed in me as well, that eventually I started to break out of this shell and become, able to stand on my own 2 feet and have some confidence.
For our listeners out there, one of the common themes a lot of our CEOs come back with is mentors.
Right.
And it sounds like somebody saw something in you didn't see.
Right.
It wasn't coincidence.
Right. Oh, without a doubt. And I really, that's why I love to mentor to this day, and made a pact with God when I got my first job in TV news in the Montgomery, Alabama days, that if I do get a job and if I am successful, there will never be a minute that I'm not willing to mentor someone, especially young women. I'm a big believer in that, because, somebody believed in me, and they gave me a new lens to look through life in, and something that I could believe in, and something I could try to be successful at.
God, that's so cool that your mom had that kind of energy.
Yeah. Oh, it was an incredible energy. And it's interesting, because growing up, you didn't necessarily see it that way. It's kind of like
your parents are always stupid.
Well, no, not that. It's just that, it's like people to this day come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, your mom, she changed my life. She did so much for me. I was just this awkward person. And I credit a lot of my success to her. When you live with it 24/7 as a child, it seems like a lot. But now looking at it in retrospect, it seems like something I'm so incredibly grateful for.
So now you're at Plant High School. You've got this mentor lady helping you.
Yeah,
your mom's right up your case.
Right.
Did you just start flowering now?
I did. It's when I really started blossoming, and I started writing for the school newspaper, and I unknowingly then started gravitating to what I would end up doing for a living. But I was the editor of the newspaper. I was, part of the speech club. I always had a love for dance, so I was a dancero and marched with the band. And I also had another influencer in my life. Her name was Edith Randolph, and she was a very, very, very strict dance coach, and the football team and the band would be cleared, and we would all still be out there sweating it out. And she was very much about discipline and very much about, being responsible and showing up and being there when you say you're supposed to be there. So she was another person that helped me. So my days at Plant High School, I will always look back at them fondly. And I have 2 daughters that are, at Wilson and will eventually attend Plant. And I'm super excited.
Well, my kids all went to Plant, and it was so funny because my wife wanted to go to Jesuit, and the sisters at the Christ the King said, Doug needs to go to Plant. And my wife was like upset. So she goes to Plant. She finds out all the merit scholars, all the craziness. She goes, that's like a private school.
It is. It's a real gem. It really is.
And they really care about their students.
They do.
They're going to get it out of you too, don't they?
They do. They're incredible.
Well, when we go to the break, again, I want to thank Gayle for coming on. We're going to go to the break here in just a moment. I just want to remind our listeners out there about the free offer of the CEO Physical. And I got people reaching out all the time about the 3 Circle Sales Program. So it's a podcast heard around the world, hundreds of thousands of downloads. Just go to Sales and Ninja Podcast on the iTunes channel. And I got sales companies that are actually putting it as their sales meetings. I'm really blessed to be able to help people there. So as you need anything from me as Dean Akers, your adjunct CEO, just reach out at help@adjunctceo.com. That's help@adjunctceo.com. And we'll be right back in segment 2 with Miss Gayle Guyardo.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. We'll be right back.
So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Welcome back to segment 2 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs every week. And this week we have Gayle Guyardo, the morning host for the WFLA Channel 8. And for me, the listeners out there don't know, but I've known Gayle for years. And to me, she's just playing out the CEO of Morning Tampa TV. And so when we went in the break, you were finishing up your journey at Plant High School.
Right.
So what happens now?
So next, off to college, and I was originally enrolled at FSU.
Where's that?
Yes, you know the school, that little school in Tallahassee there. And then I was young when I graduated. I was just 17. So I followed my best friend. Angela Hobson to Auburn, where I was just going to spend a summer there, kind of getting my feet wet in college. And when my parents came to pick me up, I was like, can I stay? You start to make friends, and, it was a wholesome school. I don't know what it's like all these years later, but at the time, it was a very wholesome school. And my very overprotective Italian dad kind of looked around this cow town of a school, and he looked around, and he goes, sure, you can stay. And so I stayed. I think that was fate for me. I think it was a better fit. I mentioned that I struggled academically, and I was just starting to get my footing at Plant High School. And I think that had I gone to a fun school like FSU, I might not have made it out. Not to say that Auburn wasn't a fun school. It was a dry town, and it was just at that time a little less of a party school. You were lucky to run into a kegger or two, but there wasn't a whole lot going on. So I kind of stumbled my way the first couple of years trying all these different things. I thought like early education, fashion merchandising, trying to, find out where I belonged. And then eventually I found journalism. So I joined the journalism school, and I did a lot of acting, which was also another big passion of mine. And that's another place where I really found a space where I fit in. And at Auburn University, in order to graduate, you had to have an internship in your chosen field.
Really?
So yes. So there wasn't a lot of, acting opportunities in the heart of Alabama. So I went to the library where the big, giant, humming computer was, and I logged on because, it wasn't like today where you have laptops and easy access to the internet. And I printed out where every TV station was located in the area. And you get out a paper map, and you stop at a roadside stand and get some boiled peanuts, and off you go to try to find an internship. So I was offered two. One was in Columbus, Georgia, where...
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
So this just makes me get giddy because my whole show that I do, my Sales Ninja, you actually went cold calling.
I went cold calling.
Listeners out there, you hear it from me all the time on my other podcasts. Gayle went cold calling with peanuts. She didn't send a resume or anything. No. She just went and put it out there, didn't you?
Yeah, you got to put your face to it. You got to knock on some doors.
That still works, by the way.
It does still work. And so I did, and I was offered two internships. One that could have been a job in Columbus, but I went to Montgomery, Alabama, and it was the state capital, and I was going to have the opportunity to be a legislative intern and work in the station. So I decided to take that internship, and they promised me that they would not offer me a job because you had to have 2 years experience in the industry before they would offer you a job. And so I lived there in Montgomery, and I went to work every day. There was no way to afford coming home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, or all these different holidays. So I would just stay there, and I would always be available whenever they needed me for anything that they needed me for. I learned everything, how to edit, how to shoot, how to do everything. And one day, the man who owned the TV station out of Atlanta, Nori LeBron, who I still keep in touch with today, says, "We've got a position open, hire the intern." And the news director says, "But she doesn't have any experience." He goes, "I always see her here. Hire the intern." So I got a big job offer for $11,500 a year. And they called me in. They're like, "You can either be Gayle Green or Gayle Garrison." So I called my dad all excited. I'm like, "I've got a job. I'm going to be Gayle Green or Gayle Garrison." And he answered with a little bit of an Italian accent. And he said, "Don't come home if you change your name." And he hung up the phone on me. So I had to somehow figure out how to tell Matt Carmack, who was very much like Ron Burgundy, my news director, that I could not be Anglo-Saxon, that I needed to stay true to my Italian roots. But all the Guyardos in town know this long spelling of our last name is, has a lot more vowels than you see on Channel 8 or anywhere else. So we abbreviated the name, and I was one of the first really women in TV back in the day, and especially in Alabama, whose name ended in a vowel. So that, for me, was kind of a breakthrough moment right then and there, is that, it was big to be a female in TV, and big to be one that was considered a minority as a woman and as somebody that is not of American heritage.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's all part of the journey wow.
It's all part of the journey.
Now, the segment of the journey I would have loved to see is your dad getting in a truck and going up and explaining to that business owner why the name is okay. 'Cause I'm sure he would have.
Oh, he would have, without a doubt. He was very proud. Yeah. Very, very proud.
Again, like I said, I got to meet him. He was a good guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Wow. So now you have a job.
I have a job.
How was that?
It was interesting. I had a job. I had 3 roommates, because when you're making $11,500 a year, I basically started off sleeping on someone's couch. I used to do Good Morning Alabama. So I spent my early career day still waking up in the wee hours of the night. Right. And our company, our television station, was an old coffin factory, and on either side of it was abandoned graveyards that literally, had kind of pushed up, and they were cracked. And I remember I would park as close to the door as I could to get in there, and it was just me and an engineer, and I would get the day started and go through the wires and write my own newscast. And we had a conveyor belt. There was no electronic teleprompters. You just placed it almost like on a projector, and you ran a cord under the desk, and as you would read, you would just pray to God that the papers didn't clog up, and that you could continue to see the news on the reflection. And then one day Matt Carmack came in, and he said, "Our weather girl quit." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know anything about weather." And he said, "Well, you're going to learn." So I learned to make maps, and I worked with AccuWeather. And at the time, I guess I can say this now because they can't come after me now, the Weather Channel had just signed on the air, and I would watch it so intently and take vigorous notes, and I would get out there and pretty much regurgitate what I had seen on the Weather Channel. And I would do the evening weather. So I did the morning news, I took a quick break, and then I'd come back, and I'd work 12, 13, 14-hour days doing what I could do to learn this field. And then it's hard living on $11,500 a year. I desperately wanted another job. But nobody, you'd send out tapes. You'd send out your big giant tapes with your resume. Nobody would call. So my big brother lived in New York, and I called him. I just can't get out of this town. And he said, well, why don't we find you a coach? I'll fly you to New York, and we'll find a coach, and she'll look at your reel, and she'll help you. I said, all right. So, I scrape up every penny I can. I fly, I stay with him. I go see this very New York coach, and she says to me, I looked at your reel, and I can tell you why you're not getting a job, Gayle. I said, why is that? She goes, well, because you suck. So
that had to be humbling.
Yes, it was very humbling, So, but it was one of those things that, in the industry, you have to put yourself out there. You have to keep putting yourself out there. So she coached me. She actually liked the weather segments better than anything else. And she's like, you're more natural. I'm like, but I don't want to do weather. I want to be a newscaster. She's like, well, if I need you to combine the 2 personalities, and so we worked together. I went back. I put all these tapes together, and my dad flew up when he was deathly afraid of flying, so I knew it had to be hard for him. So he flew up, we piled all those tapes in the car, and we went cold calling to every single TV station in the state of Florida. And I knocked on every door, and I waited in every parking lot. I sat in every lobby until I could try to get somebody to hire me in TV news in my home state of Florida.
Gayle, we've known each other a long time. I didn't know any pieces of this journey. I'm like a cold call geek.
Yeah.
And it totally works.
It does.
And our entrepreneurs out there, now you've heard this woman who's very successful twice when everybody told her she sucked.
Right.
She just didn't pay any attention, right?
I
And
did
you
not
went
pay any
cold
attention.
calling. Yeah.
I went cold calling, and it worked. I got 2 job offers, one in Jacksonville, Florida, and one in Sarasota, Florida. And so I took Sarasota for obvious reasons because it was the closest to home. And
when we come back to segment 3, we're going to talk about that Sarasota. But I got to tell you, for our listeners out there, if you don't get any message, if you hang up or turn off the radio right now, you need to go cold calling because it works, it works, it works. And we have proof today with Miss Gayle on our show. So we'll be right back with segment 3 and Miss Gayle Guyardo.
Helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Helping to navigate today's marketplace for startups and mainstays. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Welcome back to segment 3 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, every week bringing you top CEOs or entrepreneurs in the Tampa Bay area. And as most of you know that follow me, I've had mayors on, I've had very cool people, but I'm not sure I've had the CEO of the morning TV Tampa, Florida, that's what I call you, Gayle. Gayle Guyardo, the morning host of WFLA Channel 8. And when we were in the break, I got to tell you, if you think I'm stuttering right now, guess what, listeners? I am. Because I am right now as giddy as I get. I'm like weirded out giddy. Because when I see somebody like Miss Gayle, who is so together, I've known her for a long time.
Yeah.
And she's sharing her journey. If you're not turning your radio up, I'm telling you, you're missing a journey that is a message for everybody. And that's just don't let people tell you no, right?
Exactly.
You started that at Plant.
Yeah.
You went to Auburn. You went to the radio stations in Columbia, and it just doesn't exist, does it?
No. And it was back in the day when there's not this technology that we have today. So you did have to meet people face to face and shake their hand.
You know what's today? My ninjas. It works better today than it did back then. In other words, all my ninjas go cold calling.
Yeah.
And I've got guys that have gotten $1 million commissions by cold calling.
Right.
And nobody else was on the deal. Wasn't price or anything. It's like the people are so freaked out that they go, yeah, we want to do business with you.
Right.
That's epic. Oh my goodness. Well, let's get back on. So now you get a job in Sarasota.
Yes. So the way it came about in Sarasota, because I really wanted that job, and every single time I would call the news director, he said, Gayle, I am drowning in tapes. I am drowning in tapes and resume. And it was a startup station. It was it was right there on Cattleman Road in Sarasota. Folks might know that area. It was an independent startup station. So it did not have a newsroom. We were going to build this newsroom together. So I went to the store and I bought a little child's life preserver vest that you would take on a boat, like for a baby. And I set my tape on top of it and I packaged it up and I said, well, I hope out of all the tapes that you're drowning in, mine will float to the top. And
you're killing me.
And he said, he called me up. He said, I got your tape. You're hired. He's like, when can you start? So it was 3 of us, 3 young ladies, 2 photographers, a news director. We actually had computers. It was monumental. Like you sat at a computer and went through all these trainings, and we started. My beat was Manatee County. The other young lady was Sarasota, and one was Venice. And I was a roving reporter when I first started there. And this was in the early 90s. And one day the head of the company walked in of the television station, and he said, oh, we're going to have to let everybody go. He said, but you. And he pointed to me and he goes, and the sales secretary and the one photographer. And I'm sorry, that's all we've got in our budget. That was on election night. And so we had to go on and keep on chugging and keep putting on a newscast. And so we did. And And Channel 8 at the time was, and mind you, all this time I kept, excuse me, trying to get a job at a TV station in Tampa. I was not trying with Channel 8 because they had a handshake agreement with our management there that they could land their helicopter, come in and use our editing equipment, come in and use our computers when they wanted to, and they almost used us as a bureau on a gentleman's handshake. And we, in turn, got David Grant, who was a meteorologist here at the time. We would satellite him in and he would do our weather, and that was the arrangement. In my mind, I took it a step further. I would go in the editing booth and I would wait till they'd put the bug up, where it'd say Channel 8. Now we keep those ticker tapes going, but they'd lower it and I would press play and record, and I would grab their video. Between what we were getting with our photographers, what 8 was getting was theirs, I would edit, write, and produce and anchor 2 shows, one at 5 p.m., one at 10 p.m., because we did Central Time. And we put these shows on, and they were not half bad. And one day, when the Channel 8 management team flew into town, they looked around the station, and they're like, hey, let's hire this young lady in Sarasota. We've got a weekend position open there. So I almost thought it was a joke because I had been sitting in lobbies for 3 long years trying to get a job in Tampa and break from the 100th and something market into what was then the 13th largest market in the country. And I put a top 20 out in my clause with the Sarasota station, and Channel 8 was a top 13. So with 2 weeks notice, off I went to Tampa, Florida.
That had to be epic.
It was epic. It was epic.
You always have a beautiful smile, but was yours touching both ears?
It was touching both ears, and I was so out of my league. I mean, they're like, everything I sent them was not real. I had not done ever a live shot. When we got to go over Tampa Bay for an oil spill in a helicopter, we rented it for the day in Sarasota, and I would just do look lives, like, with the headphones on and looking out over the water, but it looked like a live shot. And so everything we did, when I came to Tampa, I was with the big players now, and you have to perform. You have to just live up to whatever the expectations are.
But that doesn't even sound like a heavy lift for you.
It seemed the way at the time, but I think, when you love what you do and you're running on this adrenaline and you're running on this energy, that somehow along the way you just figure it out.
But your journey all the way from Plant High School, where that lady kind of found you,
right? Your
Dancero commitment, your mother, even your dad kind of jerking your chain on you. Mm-hmm. No, these are all pieces of the journey that you were already stronger than a heart attack. You just didn't recognize it, but I think you did. Anytime you put, I don't normally talk this much because I'm so giddy about this cold calling, but the fact you put a note and your reel on a life vest and gave that to him, that doesn't happen normal.
I have to tell you, it does not happen normal. And I have to tell you, I kind of left out part of the story. I was trying really to get a job at 13, which I was given an offer. It just wasn't as good as the offer at Channel 8. But it was to start doing the overnight news for Channel 13 when they were launching a 24-hour format, which didn't survive long in Tampa. The market, it was just a little bit ahead of its time. What I did for that news director is I sent a clock, and a wind-up clock, and I had set it for the time I would need to get up to go to work for them. And I'm like, my clock's set for overnight news. Well, they thought it was a bomb, and they practically cleared out the whole station. It didn't end up being a job offer. It just wasn't as good at the time as the one that Channel 8 had offered me.
That's crazy. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So
you're killing me. You're killing me today. This is the most fun I've had. For my listeners out there, listen, I get the blessing of getting to hang with these cool entrepreneurs and folks in the Tampa Bay, actually all over the United States, and their stories just make me smile ear to ear. I don't think I had a long weekend, and I got here this morning. I was sitting out in the lobby on a conference call, and I'm always excited to come in here. I've known you for a long time. You have absolutely made my week.
Thank you, James. This has been fun for me too.
This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. So now you go to work for Channel 8.
I go to work for Channel 8, and I'm hired as a weekend anchor to do the morning news and a weekday reporter. And my days at work were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the weekends. But in my mind, my days to work for them would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My first year there, I never didn't show up on a single day at work. I could not believe that I was given a break in the 11th, now it was then 13, largest market in the country. There was never going to be a moment that I wasn't there. When I took over the weekend show, it was a bunch of old CNN feeds. It was a very crotchety old show that somebody had just slapped together because weekend news was weekend news and nobody really cared about it. So I went in to the news director and I'm like, let me reformat this, let me make this something different, something that people would want to wake up to on the weekend mornings, something more relaxed. And I worked then with a meteorologist who's in Dallas, Texas now. His name is Greg Fields. And the meteorologist at 13 at the competing station had a dog that was very famous at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided to adopt a Chia Pet dog, and we would bring it on the set and we would make it like almost like mocking, and I'm sorry for my friends at 13, we're all really good friends, but we almost made kind of a parody of our own weekend thing. We grew the Chia Pet, we went to the local South Tampa garden store, and we just started doing more lifestyle stuff. So the show started to really ramp up with ratings, and then Channel 8 said, how would you like to come Monday through Fridays and do mornings? And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is great. Monday through Friday, working in my hometown, sign me up. And morning news was 6 to 7 at the time. This very same news director, Dan Bradley, who's retired, but we still keep in touch. Great man, gave me my first break, lives down in Sarasota, gave me the same carte blanche to reinvent that show.
So when we come back in the final segment, this has been epic. We're going to talk about the reinvention of the Channel 8 morning show, which I'm sure I can't even imagine what happened there. So, again, this is Dean Akers, the host of the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs every week. This week we have Gayle Guyardo, my CEO of the Morning Tampa TV. See you in segment 4.
Success never takes the weekend off. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment.
Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 4. This is Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour. Again, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs or people in the Tampa Bay area that have made a statement and are highly successful. Today we have Gayle Guyardo, the morning host for WFLA Channel 8. And also, as I've shared with the listeners, the CEO of the Morning Tampa TV, that's my decision, by the way. So if somebody gets all angst on this thing, goes, she's not the CEO of Morning TV Tampa TV. She is to Dean Akers. So y'all can call me or write me at help@adjunctceo.com and just jump right in my case because I don't care. And at the end of the day, we've gone through 3 of the most crazy cool segments. I mean, you have a job in sales training.
I would love it.
And I'm talking about it's a high paid position. I mean, you can make a lot of money. You get on stage and start telling these stories. So now you get the morning show at Channel 8, and you start really putting it together. Let's start there, and let's bring it home with all our listeners. And again, you've blown me away today.
Well, thank you, Dean. This has been so much fun just to kind of walk down memory lane with you, because a lot of these stories I forgot until you started asking me the questions. So I'm doing the morning news, and another brilliant piece of advice from my late mom was, Gayle, you're from this town, and these are your roots. So to stay behind that desk and just read a teleprompter would be the worst move you could ever do. You need to go out and start sharing people's stories every day of your work days. And so I did just that. And I'd go out with a cameraman, and if you had a startup restaurant, I had my Nana Katie there trying your Italian food. Whatever the story was, whatever the business was, whatever the event was, I was there. And I kept that, where I would be everywhere. If you was there a charity event, I'd come and MC it. And so I think being out there and walking the walk with different people, building this great city that we live in today, and sharing their stories, which wasn't something that was common. We were just pulling stories off a feed back in the day, and creating a relaxed environment. And the team I was put with was like, it was like the perfect storm. Bill Ratliff was this buttoned up, and he was like the father of the show, and he really, would make sure all the scripts were in, because we'd get there and we would write, and he would kind of oversee things, almost like the placement of the news. And my late friend John Winter, the meteorologist, what a funny guy he was. So I was lucky to be with a great team of people, and I was lucky to have a management that was like, you know what, we'll let you go out there and we'll let you fall. It's your game to lose. And so they gave us the freedom that we don't have now in news organizations, because now there's consultants and focus groups, and it's very formula driven. You didn't just get out there and organically grow news. And so I think that being with the people and sharing the people's story, whenever you did read that teleprompter, suddenly you felt more connected, because you were talking to those people and you knew what those words meant. They weren't just words in a magic box on in a teleprompter. So I think that taking over creative control, I can't take credit for that. That is Dan Bradley allowing me, or seeing my strengths to be able to do that. That's my team members trusting me. And that included the people behind the scenes. I mean, it was a really well-oiled machine. So that journey on morning TV, out of my 26 years there, was about a quarter of a century. It was 25 of my years was morning TV, and the fabric changed along the way. Some of the cast members changed along the way, but the formula of sharing people's stories never did. And that was something that I took very seriously, because I'm from here. It matters to me that people succeed in life. It matters to me that they get their small business up and going. Like, I really do. When I signed off after 26 years, when I said I love you, I really meant that. Like, I really do think we live in this incredible, incredible community. And sure, we can talk about the bad stories all day long, but there are so many more good stories out there. And that's what I was so appreciative of, is to be able to share those stories.
Well, I have worked with a lot of businesses, and I'm a facts guy, but my facts go back to the personalities, and the personalities always supersede. And when you're genuine, whether you're selling or whatever, you've been genuine your whole life. And it's evident today. It started when you were a young lady, and you had great guidance, it sounds like, yes?
I did. Incredible guidance.
And you've been a staple. I mean, I'm going to feel weird going down the Gasparilla
and not seeing me there.
And not waving. I mean,
right.
I've been doing that for a big bajillion years. but and just you're such you're a piece of this community, and I know your next journey is based on your previous journeys. Your next journey is going to eclipse this journey on steroids. 10 years from now, when we're sitting around having a beer or a glass of wine, your next journey is going to be more impactful than you can ever imagine.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I mean, I hope that is what I try to envision day in and day out. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit scared because, it was my vocal health that took me down the journey of having to close that door and that chapter of life. It was an incredible chapter. And people ask me, they're like, do you miss it? Well, of course I miss it. And I miss my friends. I miss the day-to-day routine of having something to do. But I am a faith-driven person. And I believe in my heart of hearts that this happened for a reason and that there is something else out there waiting for me. And I'm not exactly sure. I have a lot of ideas and I have, a lot of creativity churning in my head. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm definitely going to be taking you up on lunches, and you are the guy when it comes to that, to helping people who have an idea or a vision figure out how to make it happen. So
I'm just honored. I mean, anybody that does a Chia Pet, so you get that little chihuahua and then a life preserver and a clock. I'm not worried about you at all.
Thanks,
In
Dean.
fact, I would suggest to any of our listeners out there, you need to figure out how to get a hold of Gayle just to see if she would bless you for a few minutes of her time in your company just to talk about the paradigms and all the stuff that can't happen. Because I deal with it every day. People go, well, you can't do that. And I go, wait a minute, I know somebody had a Chia Pet that got I know somebody shook her head like she was in a helicopter and she was in a chair. This is not my typical show. It's a lot more demure. My producers are all looking at me like I'm crazy. But this has been epic. And for me, cold calling. So as we wrap up, we're 3 minutes to the closeout. I want you to share. Can you bring all this together, all this stuff, and share with our listeners how, kind of reflected in the mirror, talking to one of your 4 daughters or all 4 of them, what would you share with them their future looks like?
Well, I think that their future looks very bright, and all of my daughters have very different interests. And if I could give them one piece of advice in my journey along the way, I was this very shy, awkward child. And I think out of all 5 of us women, my 4 daughters and myself, I was probably the least likely to succeed. If you talk to some of my counselors along the way, they might have told you that. And some of that thin skin and awkwardness still lives in me today. I think it's just part of my DNA. But I think that if you do keep going on and you keep trying and you keep knocking on doors and not be so thin-skinned, because let me tell you, I just told you about the yeses. There were so many no's. There were so many people that wouldn't take my phone call, that wouldn't shake my hand, that wouldn't come to the front lobby to say hello. There were a lot of no's along the way, and that can be very defeating. And I think that if you can just hang on to the yeses, hang on to the promise, hang on to the mentors, hang on to the people that are willing to guide you along the way and pay it forward, that's a huge part of it, is paying it forward to others. I mean, if you're not doing that, it never seems to come full circle. And I just think you got to keep thinking out of the box, and you got to keep trying, and eventually you'll get to where you want to be in life. And I know that I didn't do that alone, and I never try to act like I did, and I try not to keep an ego involved in this at all. I think being genuine and humble is where you need to be in life, because without others, without other support, without the support of the entire Tampa Bay market, I wouldn't have ever had that opportunity. And I hope in my heart that I served them well.
Well, I will tell you, you did.
Thank you.
I'm almost tearing up. This has been a tough show for me. Wow. This has been a tough show for Mr. Dean. You've been an inspiration on steroids for me.
Thank you.
You will be an inspiration to your 4 daughters, to those around you, and I'm not letting this stuff die. I'm just not letting it die. So again, I'm your screwed up host, Dean Akers. In my fourth segment, all like weirded out, teared up. I mean, this was one of the greatest, toughest shows for me that I've ever had. And I want to thank you, Gayle, for coming on.
Thank you, Dean. This has been really great because I got to tell you, I've been feeling a little bit lost from time to time, a lot of promise, but talking this all through gives me even greater hope and greater promise. So thank you.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, I'm not worried at all. I just want to go cold call with you. If you want to go cold call, we'll get in the car. We'll go cold call. We'll go rock some people. Again, I'm Dean Akers, your host of CEO Hour every week, bringing you top CEOs. This is the fourth and final segment. I'm so happy that Gayle Guyardo joined us today. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. And join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.